Welcome to Money Mindsets Matter. I'm Chad Craig, and remember, if money doesn't matter, then what's the matter? If you're not preparing, you're not prepared. Hey, this is Season 2, Episode 7, and we've been looking at infinite banking concept. We've been looking at being efficient in our mentality of money and spending and learning from my life journey up to this point of me buying vehicles and moving from a cash mentality to a banking mentality, looking at how it works, looking at answering the questions. Where do you put your money? Where do you put your cash? Where do you store your cash? And where do you put your money first? And the reason why we say where do you put it first is because a lot of you are first, as we looked at last episode, you're sending it away to creditors. You're sending it first to someone else's bank. In the last episode, we talked about building your own bank and how cash flow determines the width and the depth of a banking system and how much capital, how much flow of capital the system can take in. Which leads me on this episode to ask the question to you of how much money should you put in your system? Well, let me ask you this. If you could write a check and the amount of that check instantly gives you access to a pool of liquidity for the same amount at minimum of the amount of that check, how big of a check would you write? There you go. Well, hopefully you'd write as big a check as you can. And so the answer to the question is, how big of a check can you write? How much capital that's currently coming into your hands but maybe flowing into someone else's bank, someone else's system, how much of that money and that capital can start flowing into your banking system, into your control, building your system that comes with guarantees and foundation for wealth creation and wealth preservation, and comes with contractual guarantees of interest growth and uninterrupted interest growth through dividends and contractually, and also so many benefits like a death benefit and access to a liquidity pool of the mutual company that you're part owner, owning a policy. So really, it's based on seeing where every cent, every penny, every dollar that comes into your hands, where it's currently going, what's happening with it, and where is it going first, okay? Because some of it, if you're in debt, it needs to flow eventually to those debtors to pay them off. But if you answer the question, where do you put it first, and you put it in what we're talking about on Money Mindsets Matter, put it first in your system, you get all these other benefits, okay? And then send it off to the creditor. We're going to look at that in episodes to come, but we're not dealing yet with debt reduction, just because we've been talking about my journey. And my journey was a little different than a lot of people's. I was a cash mentality. Even in large purchases, even in what my family ended up doing through real estate and homes, and paying down mortgages and things that a cash mentality normally does, that now I realize that was not actually the best or the wisest. That if I had a banking mentality, I'd do things different. The good news is now we're learning and sort of redeeming where all of those piles and cash has went to. We're now getting back access to those piles of cash that we previously put in places like that, and we'll talk more of that in episodes to come. Because some of you, that's where you're at maybe, especially if you're older than me in life. Maybe you have all kinds of reservoirs of cash that have went into different liabilities or assets. We can discuss that in later episodes when it comes to homes and things. And now that capital's stuck there. Well, what do you do if you're not a high earner? I was never a high earner, but I served the Most High God, and He gave me and my family favor, and at least by the power of His Spirit, self-control and self-discipline to not live through a credit mentality and be in bad debt. So we were able to get ahead than a lot of other persons or people, because we didn't fall into the credit mentality trap, where at least so much of the money coming into us was going into someone else's bank. But cash mentality still loses out to those that what I now know have known for years and what they've been doing. And so now we're tackling that problem, and I look forward to sharing to you how that's going and what that means, because some of you, that's where you're at, and we can help serve you in it, as well as we're now further into fixing that problem that we've now discovered through a banking system and infinite banking concept. All right. So how much money should I put in my system? Well, again, how much capital do you have access to? How much capital do you have currently flowing into your hands? That helps inform. Also, what's your goals? What's currently burning in your heart? What's vision long term? That determines. But remember, the power of compounding interest is that if you put $1 into this system, okay, or you put $1 into a system that grows at 5% every year, okay, and it can compound. So the next year you have $1.05, right, growing at 5%, and that happens every year, 5%, uninterrupted growth, year after year for 30 years. That dollar turns into what, $4 and to be exact, $4.32 in 30 years. That's the power of compounding growth. So that's a 350% plus increase on that $1. Well, that's the kind of strength that these systems and the strength of specially designed dividend-paying whole life insurance contract with a mutual company can begin to do. And that's just the system. That's not even how you utilize the system, because ultimately how you utilize the system can determine the amount that asset leads to further growth and wealth creation. All right? We've only talked about the foundational level. But this leads then to some people saying, look, I get it. I buy cars. I've bought many cars. And maybe you were like me, bought them with cash. And then you've realized that once that cash flows out of your hand, you lose forever the ability of that money to make other money. You lose forever control of that money. You lose forever that money being able to be collateralized to give you access to a pool of liquidity or a pool of money to be accessed by you. And you realize that cash mentality is not the wisest way. Or maybe you've been a credit mentality. And so, in buying cars, and you're saying, okay, listen, I get it. I see it now. What do? I'm ready. Well, what you would do first is you would need to reach out to me or reach out to a person like me that is a licensed agent and an authorized agent with the mutual company, but also, more importantly, that understands the banking mentality and understands infinite banking concept and understands how to specially design these dividend-paying whole life contracts with the mutual company, okay, in such a way that leads to the acceleration and the efficiency and the strength for your system to accomplish the intent and the desire that you have, okay, currently and long term. And what I mean by currently is maybe you already have plans to buy a car, go on a big vacation. I saw just this week the average Disney trip of a family now is $7,000 to $10,000 for a trip. That's the average. And obviously the average person is putting that on a credit card. And a credit card is, close to 20% interest, okay, on that balance. And so you see what one trip is costing a person. You talk about what we talked about last week of cash flowing away from you. There's a perfect example. So it's something even like that you're already doing. Vacations, cars. We talked about, those of us that are not escrowed, we have to have a place to put our upcoming property tax bill. It could be insurance premiums. It could be your insurance for your vehicles or cars or whatever. But this money and things that you've already are doing with money in your life, okay? We want to look at that, and we want to especially design a policy to meet your current expenditures, your current situation now, okay, to get the control back into your hands, get the banking function back into your hands where you can make decisions with your capital, or you're not losing capital from you, but you're starting to build your banking system. But also that not only is it relevant in meeting those issues that are current and prevailing right now for you, but also designed in a way where you're not giving up strength and efficiency long term for your ultimate goals of beyond just preserving what comes in your hand, but wealth creation and accelerating and understanding the more mature levels of how infinite banking concept can create wealth and accelerate wealth, and then, of course, preserve wealth with you. So you would reach out to me. You comment, email us at moneymindsetsmatter@gmail.com. You can go on our web, Money Mindsets Matter, and find our info. Contact us. Set up a clarity call where we just get clarity on your situation and hear it and what your goals and current things are. And from there, based on the conversation, we begin to get clear on how much money you do have that can go into starting your system, starting your banking system. And then from there, we can begin to show and run illustrations based on what you desire and your intent and how you want to use your banking system. We can show illustrations of the guarantees, okay, that the contract will give you, the guaranteed growth rate, what it looks like 10 years out, 20 years out, 30 years out, whatever, and what the cash value is projected to grow to, and what that then, of course, will give you to the liquidity pool and access of liquid capital. And we would just work through those scenarios and illustrations until you're satisfied and ready to do it. And at that point, we would turn it over to underwriting, okay? And underwriting, you would go through underwriting where they would probably schedule for you a health assessment. They would get background information for you. And once all that gets through underwriting, you'd get your final policy declaration, okay? And the way then that you accept it, it would be your first premium, your first deposit, so to speak, into your banking system, into your specially designed dividend-paying whole life contract with the mutual company, okay, which is going to be a mutual company that has existed for over 100 plus years and has every year of those 100 plus years paid dividends, okay? And so that's what it would look like. And then obviously, as you want to learn to engage in utilizing your policy, we would help you to the level you need and want. So, we can design different policies different ways. So you can have, we won't get into it, but some policies you alone can own. But there are some people, the level where they're at wealth creation or wealth protection, they even have their trust owns the policy. Okay, and so based on your needs and where you're at and what level of net worth is and how you want to do that determines how much you need us when it's time to get a loan. Okay, so if you do it like most people do it and you own the contract, okay, we set you up on, you know how to log in, all right, to see your contract, to see the current value, cash value, and you within that can request and contact the mutual company directly and request a loan. And we can walk you through loan scenarios, the differences and the different types of loans and what that means. You'll know all of those things, and we can show you how to do it. And then in the beginning, we'll talk you through premium mode. So we encourage people, but again, it's based on where you're at and started, to do annual premiums. But if you can't do an annual premium, you just need to get started, you can do monthly premium. Okay, we can set all that up where you got automatic monthly payments coming out, going into your system, all right, or an annual one time. And so we're here to serve you in that. But the first thing is just reach out to us. And let's start the clarity call, the conversation, hear where you're at, and clarify for you the benefits of this and that you're making a right decision to get back control of the banking function and getting control of long-term, the capital that God's bringing into your hands. And right now you might be single, but maybe you desire to get married. Well, you doing this now is only going to set you up on a great foundation for your marriage and then kids, or for some of you, it could be you have kids and you want to start a banking system for them. And I tell you, the strength and the efficiency of the system, okay, two things really go into play there. The amount of capital that you can put into your system up front, number one, okay? Because remember, once that money gets in, it's earning interest and dividends. So the more money they can get in, the more amount, right, is earning interest and dividends on that more amount, which means the dividends and interest, what that equates to is more, right? So 5% on $1 is less than 5% on $10, okay? So you get it, all right? But the second thing is the time factor. The earlier you can get your system in place and moving, the more it has time for that compounding interest, okay? And it really gets so strong and efficient, more and more efficient and more strong each year. So as a parent, you start that on a child, or if you're a grandparent on a child, it's unbelievable, the wealth creation you've just started through one call and starting the conversation and start moving forward in getting you a specially designed dividend paying whole life contract with the mutual company. And we'd love to serve you in that. Okay. So I want to, with that, lead you to visualize the efficiency. Is that the more money, and again, as we continue through season 2 and even further, we'll look at other ways in wording and visuals to understand the concept, okay? But I've used, of course, the bucket language and terminology multiple times. We've used the car analogy in my personal life to help you see it and see the power of the system. But remember, the more money you can get into your system, and the more money you can commit to yearly getting into your system is going to allow that second bucket that cash value bucket to be bigger and stronger. Okay? And this, of course, the bigger and stronger that is, equals the amount of the liquidity pool of the company you're now part owner of, the mutual company, that you have a contractual right to access. So the more money you put here is going to help this bucket of cash value become bigger. And as big as this bucket cash value gets, directly equals the amount of the liquidity pool of the mutual company that you have a contractual right and as mutual owner to access anytime you want. Now, if you're just starting your policy, anytime would mean, because we're talking about how to get started, within 30 days. Okay? Within 30 days, you can access. See, notice these are 2 and 2 because they equate. That value, pull out it as a loan if you need to utilize. Okay? But you're going to have to, again, at that point, you're going to have to make sure you've learned the other money mindsets on a healthy banking mentality. Which is to think long term. Okay? So if you don't have a plan in place, you're not ready to utilize this benefit. Okay? So you got to think long term. That's the importance of it. But the sooner you start and get money in, the more it's compounding in moving up the banking mentality. Okay? Where the strength of compounding uninterrupted growth in due time, let's just put an example numbers. Let's say you've managed and reached a point where 250Ks went in. Over time, the strength of it, compounding uninterrupted growth, let's say that this now has reached 500K, which means your liquidity pool of the mutual company, your access would be 500K. Okay, and we'll look at it. Every company has a little different policies and sort of terms and how they do it, but most of them up to 90% plus, right around that, of this number you can pull out in a loan. Okay? But why this reaching 500K and giving time for the 250 through dividends interest to grow to 500 becomes so important? Well, just get out a calculator and ask yourself, well, in a year, what's 5% on 250K versus 5% on 500K? Now you see the strength is because the more the cash value is built up, the more interest and the more dividends that's paid, the more they become, which means you get more access to the liquidity pool, which means, guess how you start living in life? You start living with imagination, which what Nelson said, this is a thought experience, so to speak, I'm paraphrasing, of imagination, of creativity. It's what? Infinite. Banking. Banking is a process, but a concept. So we've been starting and looking at the concepts. Because if you don't get the concepts right, then you won't, when you take a loan, you won't be wise. You won't understand. Because in a sense, you're running your own business now. Even though now you're also part owner of a legacy business, a business that's been around 100 plus years, that shown they know what to do with the pool of money to make other money, to be able to pay dividends every year, okay? But infinite creativity. So you start looking for, hey, once you know you have access to a pool of money and your money's growing and you have that foundation, right? And you have that peace of mind, you start then looking for opportunities. Opportunities. And as what people say that do this and have done it long term, actually, then opportunities find you. And I believe it. Because one of the things that God used to open me up to when I saw that first video and realizing that before I knew how to put it into words, that a cash mentality was not the answer, is because as a church planner, as an overseer of a local church and planning a church, as you start dealing with building projects and you start serving God's people, and they grow to a place where they want a building of their own, and you start dealing with building a church building and construction, you start dealing with large amounts of money and construction and issues like that, then you find out through experience that people who manage large pools of money are people who, because they have a foundation of a pool of money or stability, who are always looking for opportunity to find other capital or money to invest. What I found is they are looking for pools of cash that can be deployed into other opportunities. Okay? So, why not you bring that under your own liberality and control? Where now you're looking for opportunities, or when people know you have a pool of money and access, they bring opportunities to you. Because I have found where people who understand banking, bankers, that when they find out you have cash stored on hand, they'll change the terms of loans. Meaning, they'll do everything they can to want to get access to your money. And when I experienced that, I started thinking, oh, that's so different than how I thought. I thought that me going to institutional banking and trying to get a loan, that they would value that I had a pool of capital saved up. No. When they saw the pool of cash stored up, they said, you know what, I want to take control of that. In fact, yeah, we'll give you a loan, but now that we know you have that pool of cash, we want all that cash as collateral, and we want to control it. Why? Because that's a banking mentality. Now they take that pool of money, and they know how to deploy it. They know how to find opportunity. They know the more cash they have ready, opportunities will find them. right? So this is where you start taking control of that banking function. You start preserving and protecting and controlling your capital and your pool of money. Then you get to a place where you look for opportunities, and opportunities look to find you. So with that said, if you're ready to take the next step, reach out to us. We'd love to serve you, love to answer your calls. Listen, our service to you costs you nothing, all right? So you'll never write a check to me. You'll never write a check to our agency, to our company, okay? We're here to serve you, all right? That's our joy, all right? So reach out to us. The only cost to be is your time. But you not utilizing the time you have now can long-term cost you opportunity cost financially and cost you compounding growth of the money you do have. So we'd love to meet you, love to talk to you, love to serve you. Again, this is Money Mindsets Matter. I'm Chad Craig, and remember, if money doesn't matter, then what's the matter? If you're not preparing, you're not prepared. We look forward to hearing from you. Subscribe, hit the like if you haven't already. God bless you. We'll see you next time.